Can start? Cool. No, for now it's okay. So it's great. We can see we have a gender balance audience here, at least. Okay. So engaging with the EU and your advocacy. First, I'm going to start by a quick introduction. So I'm Bruno Rivalan. I'm from the organization called Global Health Advocates. And as the title says, our organization works around global health advocacy. And I'm going to present you today an opportunity to influence the European Union at the country level, but also your own government in advancing the human rights and the gender agenda. So let me first start by asking you a quick question. What comes to your mind when we say the European Union? You think? You think money. That's good. If they have money, they have money. But let me explain what is the European Union. The European Union is intergovernmental association of 28 member states that legislates on common policies. Next slide, please. You can see here the 28 member states. All those member states put in a common pot some money to fund those specific policies. One of those policies is development aid and global health. So how does the EU work concretely? Next slide, please. Well, it's a bit like any state. You have a government, which is basically the commission, which represents the different ministries of those common policies. You have the council, which represents kind of the lower chamber, and gathers the 28 member state representatives. And you have the parliament, which is the upper chamber, and that is directly elected by all the European citizens. Next slide, please. Why we think you should engage with the EU? Why do you think we should engage with the EU? Because of the money, you told it? Is there any... That's true. They are present in 140 countries through EU delegation. Sarah, can you press the slide? Yeah, just the... It's a global and political and economic power. Next. It's the third biggest development aid donor worldwide. It's present in 140 countries, like you said, Louis, so they have direct contact with partner governments in those countries. Next one. But it's also committed to human rights through civil society participation. And this is enriched in their treaty, but it's also enriched in different strategies and important policies. Next one. Next one. No, just before. Then you press the, yeah. So this is one of the commitments that was made by the European Union last year around their engagement with civil society. Each EU embassies, what is called EU delegation, so the EU presence in the country, had to develop what is called a civil society roadmap to structure the relation with civil society at the country level. So maybe let's step back a bit and see how, and look at how the EU delegation work at the country level. Well, it's a bit like any embassies. You have the ambassador, and then you have different sections. And the section that is key for us is the cooperation and operation section. And furthermore, underneath this, the social development and infrastructure section. Each of those EU delegation has what is called a civil society focal point that will be the main person to contact in order to interact with the EU delegation at the country level. But the CSO roadmaps that I was referring to are led by what is called by the head of the cooperation and operations section just below the ambassador. And that's important in the sense that it shows that those CSO roadmaps are not only a technical document, but are really a political document. And it really shows the need for the EU delegation to have this strong relation with civil society at the country level. Next slide, please. Okay, the slide just before. No, the one before. Before. Yeah. Hello. Okay, and what you may be most aware of is what is well known is the ECHO office. The ECHO office is specialized in humanitarian aid. So it doesn't deal at all with any development issues. It's really humanitarian and crisis, basically. No, it's not. It's a separate budget. It's a separate directory at the central level too. Next slide, please. So why do they want to develop those CSO roadmaps? Well, they have two objectives. The first objective is an external objective, is to ensure a better public space for civil society in countries. It's what is called increasing the enabling environment in the EU jargon. They love to have those kind of jargon. But basically, it's to increase citizen participation in public life. So this is the external objective. There's a second objective, which is an internal objective. The EU realized that through civil society engagement and participation, they will be able to have a greater impact of their own program. So basically what they want to have is people telling them what is good or what is bad about their EU program in the countries. I'm going to stop here a bit and just ask you, did you already interact with the EU delegation in your country, or did one of your staff already interact with EU delegation in your countries? Yes? Anouilh? Yes, too? Okay. This is quite a rare example. Normally, no one interacts, no one knows where it is, because they are really bad at communicating on what they're doing. That's also true. Yeah. And how do they want those roadmaps to be built? Well, first, they want to understand what is the situation, what is the context in terms of public space, in terms of citizen engagement at the country level. They also want to map the different civil society actors that are active in the country, from INGOs to local CSOs to affected community to women's group and so on. They will then have a part on what is the current level of EU engagement with those different civil society organizations and citizen group. And this will lead to an identification of priorities of engagement, as well as key activities to be implemented with civil society organization. Next one. So, who is involved in designing those CSO roadmaps? Well, first you have obviously the EU delegation and the civil society focal point that I was referring to. But you also have the EU member state, the 28 member states that I mentioned before, all of the EU member states that are present in the specific countries. Let's say UK, France, Germany, all those bilateral donors that also fund projects in the country. So it should be a joint design between the EU delegation and its member states, in order to avoid fragmentation of civil society support and civil society engagement at the country level. Then you have civil society organizations themselves. They should not only be a beneficiary or an actor involved after the CSO roadmaps are developed, but they should be fully involved in the design of these CSO roadmaps. And then the last partner involved is the government in the country itself. And this touches upon a critical issue. For instance, in a fragile state, is it good to have partner government involved, or in a specific country where they have human rights violation? Is it good to have a partner government involved in this CSO roadmap drafting, knowing that it might have an impact, it might have a bad impact on the relation of the civil society space? In other terms, it will maybe be difficult to have a healthy relation, a healthy discussion around the engagement of civil society in your country if you're discussing with a government that doesn't want to hear about civil society organization. So in order to overcome this, this kind of situation, we have pushed the EU, and I say we, I don't mean only Global Health Advocates, but Concord, which is the European platform of NGOs. We have pushed the European Commission to ensure that the partners that are involved in the process should be tailored to the country context to avoid those kind of problems. Because on the other hand, when there is a healthy relation with the partner government, it will be better for the ownership of this process to have them involved from the beginning. Next slide. So what is the timeline? So basically from January until the end of this month, they were supposed to design those roadmaps. But we've heard that there is lots of delays. Initially, from July to December, there was supposed to be implementation of those roadmaps, so the activities that were chosen as priorities. And then in January, a review of those roadmaps. And this is also a really important point, meaning that this process is a dynamic process. It doesn't stop this year. Every year it's going to be updated to ensure that the evolution of the situation of the country is taken into account. So it's not a document that's going to be finished this year, put on a shelter, and never read again. It's going to be updated and so long. Next slide. So why we think it's important for you to engage? Well, first, this process is new and it's rather unique for a donor in a country to have this specific engagement framework at the political level. Then by engaging in the process, you will ensure that not only INGOs are on the table, but also local CSOs, citizen group, and women group. You will also ensure that health is featured, which is not the strongest point of the EU delegation in many countries. You will also be able to educate the EU with really what's happening at the country level. And you will force them to organize a consultation that many of the EU delegation are not doing. Yes, they are not doing that. So you need to push for this. And last but not least, and a more, let's say, selfish objective, is that by engaging with them, you will be able to raise your profile. And raising your profile at some point will maybe also help you to get funding, because EU delegation in countries have also funding for civil society. Local call for proposal, as they say. Next slide, please. So our call to action is quite simple. You should come and knock at the door of your EU delegation, request information about the process, ask to be consulted, then coordinate with partners to ensure, like I was saying, that local CSOs are around the table, that affected communities are part of this discussion. But also that you will be able to coordinate to create, let's say, a single position of civil society organization, and to show that civil society is not always divided and that they can work together on this process. And the last call to action, which you cannot see there really well, is we ask you to liaise with us. Liaise with us, why? Because we are currently developing a report, which is called the EU Delegation Watch, which is supposed to assess the relation of EU delegation with civil society through different experience in countries. So that's for us, but there's also maybe an objective for you. Through liaising with us, you could also tell us what are the main problems that you face at the country level, what are the blockages, and we could easily advocate at the central level for the directories to put pressure on their staff at the country level and unblock the situation. So that's all for me, and if you have any question, please go ahead, and there is those email address that you can also, if you want to get in touch at a later stage around those process. Thank you. Maybe, I don't know if you have a question, we can enter in a more discussion phase. So we don't have yet specific feedback because we're going to launch a survey soon, and we are currently designing the survey. So we wanted the roadmaps to be drafted before structuring our response. But I mean, maybe I can ask you a question. What would be the information or the tools that would be helpful for you in order to engage with the EU delegation, if you are interested by doing so?